So another question that I'm asked often is, how are these essays relevant to the work that we do or to the work that I have done? The other way of asking the question is, you talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? So let me just cite anecdotes, experiences from a few projects internationally. When I was working on the Peak Tower in Hong Kong, this was a very important project for the local context, and understanding what the local contractors and the context could deliver with the climate that's humid and has typhoon rains at certain times of the year, and understanding the skill sets of the local contractors, also understanding what the local audience wanted from a space like the Peak Tower, included being there locally, understanding the local context, speaking to people, speaking to the contractors, going to their factories in mainland China, understanding the skill sets was very critical in what the design solution was. Case in point, the big ceiling in the atrium, they wanted it to be a backlit glass ceiling or a backlit panel. And my point to the architects and the contractors was, well, how are you going to service it and how are you going to clean it? Because it's going to get dirty and there are going to be a lot of bugs, and how are you going to do it? So there was no way to do it, right? So we ended up coming up with this other space design which responded to the context, gave it that color changing, dynamic, pixel mapping kind of function. Now, for those of you who are into pixel mapping and projection mapping, now remember this project was done in 2004 and 5, where we didn't have the softwares that we have now, right? Which makes it easy. So that was Peak Tower in Hong Kong. So then let's move further west to India. Golden Temple, very prominent project in the north of the country in Punjab, Amritsar, the most holy place for the Sikhs in the world. The society that runs the temple complex hired us and asked us to work on the project, and there was this counterpoint of, well, why don't we light it mysteriously? I said contextually that is incorrect, because the context says purity is built into one of the tenets of Sikhism. So you don't want it to be a theater set. This is about sanctity and purity. Then the next thing that came up was, well, why don't we light it with this kind of a light? At that time it was a high pressure sodium. Remember, this is 10 years back. LEDs weren't mainstream as much. And I said to them that if you light this with a high pressure sodium, it's not going to be called the Golden Temple. It's going to be called the Tin Temple, because it's going to look like tin. So the color characteristics of the Golden Temple and highlighting the gold required me to come up with a special spectrum mix of lights. That was contextual. Then we moved further to Dubai, where in the late 2000s we won this design competition for lighting the Sheikh Rashid bin Zayed Bridge, connecting Bur Dubai to Dera. And there, understanding the context, I designed a lighting system that simulated or that responded to the cycles of the moon. That was contextually so strong for the local body, which is the RTA, the Regional Transportation Authority, that over the many entries that came in and over the many boards that were submitted for our entry, they chose to only showcase the lighting concept board, which was about lighting simulating the cycles of the moon. So, because we understood the context, because we understood the relevance of the moon in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, we were able to come up with this idea. I was able to I keep cycling between I and we because I believe that we all work together as a team at AWA. But I'm the design principal, so I may switch between I and we, but I really mean us as a group, but me personally as the design principal. So when we did that, understanding the context really took us to the other side over all the other competition entries, and we won the competition. Then you move on to Nigeria, Lagos. Great experience of working on a hotel there. And what was so special about what we did there? Quite simply, we engaged with the local artisans, craftsmen, artists, so that we could, with the architects of course, build a project that really redefined contextual responses in the hospitality industry. What does that mean in terms of the lighting? So the lighting was about an evocative West African experience, is very different than a similar project that would have been built in New York or any other city. That was the intent, that it's different, it looks different. It's not trying to be Singapore in Lagos. It's not trying to be Dubai in Lagos. It's Lagos in Lagos, and proudly so. It's a great group of people, a great country, and just embracing that was really great. Then move over to Haiti in the Caribbean, where we've been doing work before the earthquake, working with the rural areas and empowering them with vocational training with light and building light fixtures that they can then use to study under, and a whole lot of other things. Again, understanding the country, understanding the context helped us design a light fixture, light source that had a battery power with photovoltaics with a water purifying system as well, and a light that could be charged in a communal manner. Very successful project, very well-meaning project. Of course, not a project which unfolded into the deep pockets of Haiti, but we were able to at least start the dialogue there. If you come to New York and you look at our project in the United Nations Plaza called the Ark of Return, which is for a memorial for the abolition of slavery in the United States, again understanding the context and understanding that this memorial is not a science museum which highlights all the atrocities that were done and the slave trade that happened, etc., but that it's an emotional space where we can reflect upon the injustices done and create a moment with light that helps the current and future generations connect with something that they're not really exposed to, on the transatlantic slave trade that happened for over 400 years. And the response was a simple but poignant response with light. So it's not about how many light fixtures we use. We only use 3 for this whole space, But the context was understood and the dialogue ensued. So the point I'm making is, with this great question that has been asked of me, is do you really put this into practice, or you don't have anything else to do, so you sit down and write essays? Yeah. Now the essays come out of these experiences. They come out, they're drawn out from these experiences that have actually happened, and that's a criticality that has to be understood, that it's not let's write an essay and let's find a project to implement it in. No, it's the other way around, that we do these projects ever present, understanding that we must question, be the contrarians that we are, be the iconoclasts that we are. We must question and then share that knowledge with the industry at large. What I'm trying to say is that the question is best answered by stating that the essays don't come first. The essays come after the experiences on the projects. And in that, there is relevance to what we write, what we talk about, and the walk that we do, in a big way. Because sincerity to the intent is paramount.